welcome back to the Sigma Show, episode 34. I am your host, Sigma. And before I let you know who's joining me today, real quick, we're just going to go over what our topics for this week will be. Not too much in the news, though what is in the news is quite shocking, to say the least. But first up, after we recap on kind of like what we've been playing and checking out over the week, we're going to go over EA Plays 2021 conference thingy. They didn't have a ton of news, but I do think there were some exciting stories that came out of that. So we'll dive into that for a little bit. And to close things off, we'll be going in depth into this whole California lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. Some very disturbing allegations have been levied at the company. And it's opened up, or reopened up, I should say, this conversation of kind of discrimination, sexism, racism in the workplace, in the game dev atmosphere. And we'll just try and get down and dirty into what all of this is kind of affecting. But to talk with me about these topics today, as usual, Superman Jeff.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Rexicon Jesse.
Good morning.
And joining us for the first time, Rachel Kaiser. What's up, Rachel?
Hi. Glad to be here. I'm a newcomer.
Right, exactly. For anyone who doesn't know who Rachel is, do you really quick want to just let them know kind of what you do on the internet, like why someone like you would have been invited to such an illustrious podcast as this?
Well, I've been training for this for the last 7 years. That's roughly about as long as I've been writing about video games. For the last few months, I've been writing for The Escapist. I write the Spoiled column. And I'm also part of the Escape the Galaxy show on the Escapist channel. So, yeah, if you want to hear somebody talk about video games and Star Wars, I'm your girl.
Awesome.
I mean, we probably won't be talking about Star Wars much today, but I'll let that slide.
Well, EA is in the lineup, but I guess they didn't have much Star Wars news.
Yeah, they told us that ahead of time, so killjoys.
But so glad to have you here, Rachel. Hopefully it won't be the last time we see you. Hope to have you here whenever you feel inclined to join us.
Yeah, I always love to come by. Nice. I've watched the show before. I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Aw. Don't make me blush. I have a show to do.
Because that would
real quick.
That would just end the show, wouldn't it?
But yeah, since we don't have a ton of topics today, we will go back to a tried and true time filler, the what you've been playing, what you've been watching segment. So if anyone, and I do know that there's been some recent interesting releases that folks have been diving into. So if anyone wants to jump in and just kind of call off what you've been getting into, let us know.
I actually...
Rachel? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, you said jump in, so that's why I was...
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I actually just finished Untitled Goose Game for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not a new release, but it's something I'd always wanted to play, and so I finally got around to it, so I was very happy. I loved it.
Yeah, I only played a tiny bit of it with my son.
I remember.
That was before they added the co-op, and then we played probably the same amount of it before the co-op with the co-op, because... While that game is very funny, like I personally it didn't hook me. Like it's kind of like there's not a lot to do other than just kind of poke at the world and laugh at that, which is fun for the time I spent with it. But like you actually finished the whole thing. Like, so what was it about it that you like that really like hooked you?
Well, I like puzzle games a lot. That's where I started as a gamer, and then I sort of just branched out into the other stuff. And Untitled Goose Game is a puzzle game, so that's. It wasn't a huge time filler, but I like little slice of life games like that, especially when you're playing what I'm pretty sure is the purest embodiment of evil that I've ever played in a video game before. It has no motive other than just to screw with people, the goose. So yeah, and that's what I enjoy.
What's weird is how true that is to real life, because geese are mean.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
in the real world, geese are
Why
a-holes.
Everybody hating on geese.
Well, they wake up and choose violence every day.
Yeah.
Only person who stands by geese.
Like what? Like have geese like saved your life as a child or something? I don't understand, because they're mean to everyone else. So like, what did they do for you?
I feel like they are not mean to me. I mean, I've been hissed at by some gooses.
That counts as being mean.
Okay, but like also,
did you deserve it? Is that what you're saying?
I feel like sometimes yes, but most of the time you can get close to a goose. They're just like, yeah, what's up? And like as as an introvert, I understand the awkwardness when someone gets close to you, and I can
Right.
relate and understand.
Okay, I can see
Okay, so
that point
you
of
you
view.
embody the inner rage of the goose, and that's
Yeah.
why. Okay.
Ge-
Asabu Luffy in the chat, what's up? Says geese attack children.
That's just a bonus.
You gonna
I
defend
don't.
that? What's your
Yeah, they
what's your
deserve
defense
it.
for
Children
children
deserve
attack?
it. They do. If a goose
Oh,
attacks
man.
a
Agree with
child,
that.
the child had it coming.
Right.
I mean,
Full stop.
considering that I attacked multiple children in the game, well, just one child in particular. There is one of the goals of the goose in game is to terrorize a child.
That's
That is true.
That's
Yes.
the one that runs in the phone booth, isn't it?
Yeah, you can also
Yeah.
trap him in the garage if you're really feeling it that day.
Oh man.
Which of course I was, because I was feeling it that day.
Yeah,
But
geese teach you how to terrorize children. So
again, I mean, if games are escapist media, I'm escaping into the persona of something, a being of pure malice.
who Jesse just happens to love unconditionally.
Yeah.
Devil
I'll let that speak for itself, Jesse.
So is that it for you, Rachel? Just Entitled Goose Game, or anything else you've been playing? Anything you've been watching?
Well, I finished Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart earlier this week, and right now I'm just waiting for Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
When does that drop?
I think Tuesday.
Oh, so very soon.
Yeah. So
Are you a big Ace Attorney fan?
yes, I am. So, because it's basically a puzzle game. I know it's a visual novel, but it's a puzzle game. So yeah, but I
Yeah.
started in the Nancy Drew fandom video
Oh,
games.
are
yeah.
those all the books behind you?
Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys. I got Agatha Christie
Oh,
over
man.
here. So yeah. I started with mystery novels and mystery films and mystery video games. So yeah, Ace Attorney is right up my alley.
Nice. I've never gotten into those, but they always look like a lot of fun. Like those characters, especially, are like really funny.
hmm I'm really excited to because obviously this is a game that was released in Japan, but has never been ported to the West before now. So I've seen it, but I've never actually gotten a chance to play it. Well, I've seen other people play it, but I don't understand what's going on, obviously. So I'm really excited to see their pastiche of Sherlock Holmes.
Right, because that's what it is, right? This
Right.
this
Yeah.
particular one is basically kind of their take on. Nice.
Oh yeah.
I want to say shout out to Ash Redux, who joins us on the podcast every now and then. I remember he and some friends were basically doing dramatic readings of one of the Ace Attorney games. It was very funny to watch.
Oh, that's
they
awesome.
also
So if you
remind
can
me of
find
the,
that, check that out.
They remind me of the Detective Conan anime.
Yes, Detective Conan's very Sherlock inspired. Lampy with the ban Ash emote. As soon as he's mentioned, it just bans him immediately.
No wait.
I sense some
Okay,
hostility.
nice. Ash knows what he did.
He knows.
So does that wrap things up for you, Rachel? Anything else you want to share?
Nah, that's pretty much been my week.
All right, nice. Jesse, Jeff, anything you guys want to share with the class?
You're welcome to go first.
I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Unite. That dropped a couple days ago, and I've been playing that like nonstop. I think this is probably the most I've played my Switch since I've had it.
This is that free-to-play
MOBA,
MOBA
yeah.
starring Pokemon characters.
Yes. Was a little skeptical of it at first because it just didn't make sense how would you score goals, how would things work, but it works. You know, I played the tutorial, and from the tutorial I just kind of got it, and it does have a learning curve. I mean, Pokemon moves, but there's different things. There's items you go attach to, and most MOBAs you buy items through the course of the game where you kill, you get gold, you go and buy items, you start to build your character. Here, your moves kind of build your character, but you can get initial items to start with, and they're just classical Pokemon items like Assault Vest and Headband, stuff like that.
Do they do the same things that they do in the Pokemon games, or are they like repurposed for the MOBA gameplay?
To a certain extent, they do the same thing. But there's like passives, and then there's active abilities where something happens and something triggers something else. So you score a goal, and then you get a shield on you, or you have a shield while you're trying to score a goal. So that way, it's easier for you to score. In addition to plus whatever to your attack or whatever it is, and it's not like super. where
What, you,
if someone doesn't have an item, they're not at a complete disadvantage. You're at a slight disadvantage. You might get like +6 or +7 to your normal attack, but they're not at like a complete advantage where you're getting like +40 or something like that. So it's not like, oh, if they don't have that item, then they're in trouble. But everybody unlocks the item, so it's not like, you gotta go and spend a bunch of money on it. You get some of it unlocked through regular gameplay, and some of it you just unlock through currency, and it's not that expensive. You accumulate currency pretty fast.
this is like during the match, or is it like you have to play for a certain amount of time and then you'll have it in your
So
inventory to use whenever you choose?
so it's like this. So you before the match you do prep. You go in and you assign these items that you want to have on you. Then when the match starts, you then have those items on you, but you're stuck with those
Okay.
items. There's no change and there's nothing like that. Before a match starts, you always have battle prep, so you can assign what items you want to assign. So that's how.
And those come from what, like rewards from winning
No,
other matches or something, or
you get them
you?
from just playing, like it's kind of like a battle pass. It's like a free battle pass. You
Uh huh.
unlock some characters and items that way, or you can just go in and buy those items from the store for the in-game currency.
So that's how they make money then, is on items that actually affect the gameplay.
No, you use the in-game currency. So
Oh, in game. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So how do they make money? Have you figured that part out? Because
there,
it's a free to play game.
there's cosmetics. So
Okay.
you can buy cosmetics for like your Pokemon or you if you want to unlock Pokemon. Not all of them unlock through that battle pass. You only get certain ones through that battle pass, and they're later on. Some of them might be later on. So if you want a specific, let's say you want Lucario, then you can pay the 4.99 to go ahead and get Lucario, so that way he's unlocked for you now.
Right. What is the other game that has that model? Is that League or Dota, where it's like you
League.
can play for free with these characters, but
So
then you can pay money for the rest of the roster, and it's like hundreds of
what
characters.
your League of Legends and Dota kind of have a similar thing where they have like rotating free characters, so you can try those characters.
Ah, okay.
And then, like, if you like those characters, they're usually going to discount when they're free. Or let's say you want to buy another character, you can buy another character because they're constantly introducing new champions and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um,
I see a lot of activity in the chat. Aesop Luffy's asking, is it true Pokemon aren't weak to their usual weaknesses, also, like AKA water versus fire?
Correct. That doesn't play into the because they don't have enough Pokemon for that to really be kind of a mechanic yet. Because there's only one water Pokemon. No, there's two water Pokemon. There's two fire Pokemon. There's like one grass. So it doesn't really. There's not enough Pokemon for that to actually play into the overall gameplay of the game.
I guess that makes sense. It'd just be extra meta on top of, I guess, the MOBA meta, right?
Yes.
But
Now there's stuff like there's world like little world bosses where you kill those, your team gets a buff, stuff like that. So it still has deeper mechanics. And right now it's very early. There's two Pokemon they were supposed to release with the game that didn't come out in time for the release that they're going to be releasing soon. I think it's like Blastoise and Gardevoir. So they'll be coming out a little bit after the game release. So it's doing well so far. So
yeah, it seems like everyone who's been playing it has been, enjoying it and
right.
talking it up. So good for you guys. I probably will not touch
Oh
this
yeah,
game because
we
it's a
figured
Pokemon MOBA.
we figured that as much.
Lampy with one last question. Can you unlock the characters just through gameplay or only through purchase?
Yeah, so you can unlock them through gameplay. So you get gold. You can use gold to buy the Pokemon, or if they're not on the game pass, which you get through experience, you can pay in-game currency, which is the gold. The
Nice.
the microtransaction currency are gems.
And gems get you
You can buy
what, like,
so like it'll be like
oh, the actual, okay.
yeah, so it'll be like 10,000 gold for Pokemon, or it'll be 575 gems. So you can use
Gotcha.
either currency.
Makes sense.
Aside for that, I've been watching the second season of the movies that made us just came out. So I've seen like
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, the first episode of that was with Back to the Future, and how like Michael J. Fox wasn't the first actor playing Marty McFly. I think it was Eric something. I can't remember the last name, but I love those. There was that one, the toys that made us, the movies that made us, and then the holiday movies that made us. They just give you like looks behind the scenes of how the movies came to be. Little quirks or things that happened throughout the filming of the movie. How the ending was supposed to be different in Back to the Future. It was supposed to be like a nuclear bomb went off, and they used that energy to travel back to
Oh man.
Back to
It's
the
a
future.
much darker story.
Dang.
And it was like
Uh,
$6 million just to create that scene, and they were going over budgets. Like you're spending too much. You only get 12 million, and they were at like 18. So they cut that and then just did the clock tower scene where the lightning struck.
So they spent the money, but then cut it anyway.
What they wind up not doing. I guess they budgeted.
Oh, because
Yeah, they budgeted how much that.
it would have took.
Yeah.
Dang, yeah, nuclear bomb. That would have changed the entire tone of that
Right.
film.
It's almost a Fallout game.
Pretty much. And Spazowell in the chat says it was Eric Stoltz,
Yeah,
who I guess had the role before.
Yes. So I mean, and that's pretty good. And a little bit of the first episode of the New Kingdom, Ashen of the North. It's a I think it's Chinese. It takes place in China, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, is that animated?
No, it's live action.
Okay, I'm thinking of something else then.
Yeah. So if you know Kingdom, it was based on the Saxons and the Britons. I think it was like a bunch of seasons on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
Okay. Well, this one's in Chinese version where the main character is a girl. Her whole family was killed. They were betrayed by the ruling house that they were loyal to. The ruling house actually killed some enemy soldiers, and they tried to blame it on tigers. But because that didn't fly, they blamed it on the house that was under them. So that whole house was wiped out. The girl goes to the ruling house and asks them to get revenge for her father, and they made it seem like they weren't the ones responsible. She finds a scroll that which was a little weird that he would write all that down, but he wrote down everything that happened. Like, yeah, we told them that it was the small village over here, so that way we wouldn't have to go to war with them. And then from that, she goes on. It has a weird thing where there's a flower that turns dead people into zombies. So it's a lot. It's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's a lot going on.
You?
And that's
I think Tommy in the chat is saying Korean, I guess.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
it's not a Chinese production, a
Okay.
Korean one.
Thank you.
Aesop was yelling spoilers.
Oh, that's just the premise of it.
That's just the setup.
Yeah,
Ace. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's like the first 30 minutes. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. But does that wrap things up for you, Jeff?
Yes.
All right, Jesse, you ready, or are you still drinking your coffee?
I mean, I'm going to be drinking that this whole time, so that's not going to stop me from talking. I haven't gotten to play a whole lot this week because I've been prepping for a Kickstarter that launches on Tuesday. So
Right.
That's eating up most of my time. I have gotten a bit of Rogue Company in as like a single match. Like, okay, let me just play this, relax for a moment. It's not relaxing. I don't know why I do it. I'm like, let me just have fun for 20 minutes. So stressful. So sweaty. I just got Mario Golf, and that's really fun. I don't know if you played that.
You're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Oh, I have that
Yeah.
too. You got to play. I think a bunch of us got it.
Yeah, I bought it too. I just haven't had a time to really spend with it.
We got to play it. It's fun.
Yeah. I think
Motion
Ash had,
controls, right?
Ash had
Yeah.
it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, you're playing
everyone
with
has to
motion
play the same
controls, is what
control
you're saying?
scheme, right?
I mean, look, if we decide to all play it together, I'm fine with everyone defaulting to motion controls. In the comfort of my own home, I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't bother with the motion controls. I'm just being honest.
Oh, they're so fun. You're like, I don't know. I really like motion controls, so whatever.
Is that how you play golf, Jesse?
That,
Right?
To be honest, yes. I bring
Just
that.
lasso the ball.
Yeah, you freaking
There you go.
drive it up and then you give it a whirl and then whack. That's exactly how I play golf. Also, the animations for Waluigi in that game are the greatest thing I've ever seen. So,
Yeah, you are a Waluigi fan, right?
I do. My partner loves Waluigi, so I have I've been brought to see how great Waluigi is, and now I agree and support Waluigi.
She converted you.
Yeah,
Another hashtag.
yeah. I was pretty passive before, but now I understand.
Blue Bones, we see you in the chat. What's up? Welcome.
Oh, hey, Blue. And I've been playing a little bit of Monster Hunter Rise before bed because that's actually kind of relaxing in a weird way.
The murder of defenseless animals can.
They
can
are
really let
far
you
from
steam up.
defenseless. They have knocked me out many a times.
I mean, because you show up in the middle of their house
Right,
and
you
just
know?
start swinging swords at them.
It's worse than Shadow of the Colossus, where you just go around murdering all these benevolent creatures.
I've tried to defend the plot, like, oh, but they're like, attacking people en route. Because if you give like the why you're like hunt this critter, it's not like get its skin. It's like, oh, we can't get the bunny dungos because this creature keeps attacking travelers as they're coming in with supplies. It's like you got to stop
enough.
it.
Yeah, so now they got to go.
Yeah, and now and violence is the only option. It's Untitled Goose Game if we are the goose.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun.
We were the real monster all along.
Yeah, humans are the real monster.
I've heard that argument before, like that the monster refers to the player character in the title and not who you're actually hunting.
Monster Rise.
Oh, yeah, that could work. I could see that.
All right, anything else you've been messing around with?
I got the audiobook for The Deep, which is really good, but I didn't listen to it fast enough, and now it got returned, and I have to wait to finish it. But that's a really good book by River Solomon.
What is that about? Have we talked about this before?
No. The other book that I talked about last time was Star Something Rising, which is about sentient dolphins. Sci-fi stuff.
Yes.
This is about merfolk. And that
very similar trains of thought, though.
Vastly different book. It is good. I'm really enjoying it.
Okay, nice.
Great world building. I got to watch some of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, which is pretty cool so far. I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching video game movies with my friend Blight and a few other people who have been joining us. Totally watching them legally, not over Discord. All video game movies. So I've been able to see, like, what do we watch? Silent Hill, Mario Brothers, Alone in the Dark, Ace Attorney, and Prince of Persia, and Ratchet and Clank, I think is what we've all gotten through yet so far.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a different list, because some of those movies I don't think are actually that bad.
Mario Brothers is awesome. That movie
I kind of like it.
It's good.
Like, I grew up on that movie. It's not the Mario game at all, but it's its own thing.
We don't have to do a show of hands to make sure, like, I want to out anybody, but, like, that's the best movie in that list by a long stretch.
Yeah, Prince of Persia was horrible.
I kind of liked Prince of Persia.
You would.
Like, Jake Gyllenhaal shouldn't have been the prince, but...
Okay. Look, rewatching that movie, that is... there is so much whitewashing. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal is the tip of that iceberg. He is the top that you're like, that's the problem. But then when you watch the movie, you're like, oh yeah, and Ben Kingsley. And all these other white people. And, like, you might see some not white people in the background. And that's about it.
Yeah, they did not care with that one.
They did not. It was like, I can't. I mean, I also think that's kind of a garbage
if we
movie,
ignore the blatant whitewashing and disregard for culture, not a bad movie.
Oh, I hated it.
Pretty okay movie.
I did not like it. On top of that, but yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, Mario Brothers, underrated gem. It's kind of a mess.
I think it's rated appropriately, but I still think it's a gem.
That's fair. It is a mess. I wish it was better, but it's not bad.
Oh man, I need to rewatch that myself just because. But does that wrap things up for you?
Yes, except I do want to point this out because it's an inside joke, and I'm sorry. My friend Blight was 100% convinced, had like whatever Mandela effect or whatever, where he thought Yoshi died in that movie. And he was like talking about it before we watched it, and then we watched it, and he was like, Yoshi doesn't die? What is this memory I have?
Is that the Mandela effect?
Yeah. I think that's what
Like
it is, where you have a false memory or like of a thing that you're convinced.
But I thought it was
real.
like a cultural. Like, is he the only one who has this memory?
Yeah,
or
he's
did
the
other
only
people
one. I don't know
co-sign it?
anybody else who has this.
Also, it's just a delusion then.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Yeah,
He had
I
a
don't know if
delusion.
that counts as a Mandela effect.
Sorry. So he just had a delusion. He has convinced himself that was it and was totally shocked when Yoshi didn't die.
Is this the director's cut?
Yeah.
Very dark director's
Perspicacious
cut.
in the chat says hashtag RIP Yoshi. Oh man, that's great. Not that Yoshi possibly died, but just that he thought he did.
No, we've been laughing about that. It's good.
But yeah, as for me, most of the stuff I've been playing, you can probably see the reviews on The Escapist. I finished Death's Door, which was a pretty dope indie game made by a team of 2 people and a bunch of artists. It's a Zelda-like. It's top down. It's both like tongue in cheek, like it's kind of lighthearted, but also kind of grim in its tone. So it kind of reaches like this really cool balance of this kind of supernatural world where you play as a Grim Reaper. Like you're a literal crow. Like you're not like an anthropomorphic crow. Like you're just a crow, and he has a sword on his back. So as much as I dislike birds, it's kind of cute. So I got down with that.
What's up with the bird hate today?
Right.
Geese, crows.
Chicken. He don't eat it.
Birds know what they've done.
He hates chickens.
I mean, you look what I have to go with. Jeff is the chicken representative, so that's why I hate chickens.
What?
That's its own inside joke from a long time ago. I won't go down that hole. But yeah, the combat is solid. The gameplay in terms of like navigating like the weird world and like puzzle solving and the progression of like getting new items and unlocking new stuff, like it's like a light Metroidvania in that way. And I say light because it's not you don't get to kind of free roam around the world, right? Like it is kind of a linear path. Like you have to go to one world before you go to the next, and like the upgrades that you get define that. But once you get like towards the end of the game, you start to learn that there are actually paths that you can kind of walk and like get even more upgrades than you thought were in the game, like more stuff than you need. Like you can finish that game without finding a lot of this stuff. And there's an end game after you beat the game. So like I still very much want to go back and like finish off everything I can find, because that's just how much I've enjoyed the experience. So like I can't recommend that game enough. And super shout out to the soundtrack. The Death's Door soundtrack is amazing. 50 tracks, $10 on Steam.
Ooh.
I bought that because I have access to the game. I wasn't going to buy the deluxe edition for $25. I already played the game. But I bought the soundtrack because they are very, very much deserving of money for the work they put into that. Outside of that, I ignored all the invites to play Pokemon Unite, so I'm not going to get into that. I did play Smash yesterday. This is kind of a sad story.
You're doing Wario, right?
Yes, I was trying to finish this Wario challenge. If you don't know, I was gifted a certain number of subs to get Wario into Elite Smash, which is like the high-ranking version of like online Smash play. And I want to say it's been like 6 months since this challenge started. And yesterday I had like maybe 1, if not 2 matches to win that would have put him in Elite Smash. Instead of winning 2 matches, I lost maybe 7 or 8.
Oh,
And
man.
so I was at 9 million. I need like 9.1 and
You're at
some
like
change.
6 now.
Yeah, now I'm basically down to like 7 mil. Like I ended on a couple of wins to kind of crawl myself back a little bit, but I'm a full 2 million points down. So I will probably never get Wario into Elite Smash at this rate. So
Dang.
I just hope you guys are happy in the chat, because now when I play Smash, I have like this dark Wario shaped cloud hanging over me. If you watch that stream, like I banged on my table and knocked my camera over. Like,
Oh,
it was
man.
pretty sad. It was pretty upsetting.
Oh man.
Poor Twitch.
Oh, boy. But outside of games, I have been watching a bunch of stuff. I didn't go to see. No, I did go to see. I went to see the Marvel movie, Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Right? Yeah. It took me a while to really wrap my head around how I felt about that. But ultimately, after talking with Darren and Amy on Marvel's Escape, yeah, I didn't like that movie. Like, I do think it's one of the weaker ones out of the Marvel.
Oh yeah, it's most definitely. It's a 7 for me. It's a 7.5. It's definitely. it definitely struggles and it underutilizes the main reason people went to see the movie, which was Taskmaster. But that's a whole separate story. I do love the gender swap of it, but they definitely underutilized the main villain, well the main antagonist in that one because the main villain was somebody else, but they definitely underused Taskmaster.
Yeah, because from what I understand, like Taskmaster and Black Widow have like sort of a tangled history or something.
In the comics, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it was the fact that they kind of didn't do that, right? And kind of went this completely different route with Taskmaster that kind of disappointed a bunch of people.
well, the route that they went didn't make much sense, nor did it add or take away from the story, and also the resolution to that was very bland. It didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I,
get
I
what
can
you
agree
mean.
with that. Yeah.
But yeah, I won't stick too long with that because I'd rather talk about Space Jam, which I watched last night. Space Jam, A New Legacy is a LeBron one.
Right.
I weirdly really I don't know if it's weird because people like the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan, right? Like people like that movie, right? I don't remember if it's a good movie at all anymore. I just know that I watched it a ton, absolutely love the soundtrack, and so like it's coded into me as something I enjoy.
Look, it's up there with Mario Brothers.
Something Mario Brothers. I really liked Space Jam: A New Legacy. I thought it was okay. Like I 100% understand how corporate it is, like how it's just
Right.
pumping all of WB IP in your face and just showcasing to everyone like this is all the stuff that we control. So I don't know, like give us money in the future. I don't know what the purpose of that really was. But like during like that final basketball game, like we were having a ton of fun just like saying, "Oh, the Animaniacs are on that spaceship." Like, "Oh, look, that's Batman from this movie." That's like that those are the White Walkers in the background. Like that was fun.
Right.
Like I liked it. I'm sorry.
I watched it with my son. And he actually sat through the whole thing. And people don't remember that the original Space Jam wasn't that great. If we're being honest, it was.
Yeah, it probably wasn't,
you know,
right?
Yeah.
It was good because Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes. Oh my God, like this is good. And the Monstars were probably the best part of the Space Jam movie. But
Yeah, the Goon Squad
Yeah.
does not hold a candle to the Monstars.
no,
The
that
Monstars
they had
leave
more,
an impression.
yeah, they had a lot more personality. Because they went from these little insignificant little aliens who were getting walked over, made fun of when they came.
Yeah, they had their own story.
Right.
Yeah. Like that's not kind of what happens in
Right.
A New Legacy. Like I won't spoil it for anyone who's dying to see Space Jam: A New Legacy. But yeah, like the Goon Squad doesn't have as much character development, as shocking as that might sound. But either way, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was okay.
Outside of that, talking to documentaries, I've been watching This Is Pop, which is on Netflix.
Oh, I've been watching
Like,
those. Yeah.
yeah, it dives into like the history of a lot of like the music industry and like shenanigans they get up to because they be getting up to some shit.
Right.
But the first one on Autotune is a must watch. Like T-Pain is kind of like the crux of that story, and T-Pain is a joy to watch in like any capacity. So like if you watch anything, please watch that episode,
It made
and
me-
then it'll probably draw you into the rest because I'm like really into like all that backstory stuff when it comes to music.
It made me-
and they tell really good stories.
It made me hate Usher after that.
It made you hate Usher. Yeah, Usher's got. I want to know if like he got some backlash, like if people like
Right.
messaging like Usher, you need to apologize to T-Pain, etc. Cause yeah, like that was rough.
That was uncalled for. Yeah. So definitely watch it and see what we're talking about.
But that's gonna do it, I guess, for what we've been watching / playing. We're gonna move on now, unless anyone has anything that has sprung to mind. No,
I
All
do,
right.
I
We're gonna
do need a
jump-
list of good mystery games from Rachel, because my partner
mystery
loves
games.
mystery games,
Mhm.
and I am oblivious, so I am zero help.
Okay, I will. I mean, do you want that now, or should we get to that after the show?
After's
What's
good.
your top suggestion?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
one top
Um,
suggestion for mystery game Jesse should check out.
that's a good question. It's like, well, first of all, I mean, are you like a point and click adventure game fan? Because that's a lot of.
Yes.
But
I'm
so,
mildly.
I mean,
This
have you
is
played
up-
any of
yes.
the? Have you
Hmm.
played any of the Ace Attorney games? I'll ask that.
No, I have not.
I actually, I would actually recommend starting there, if only because Phoenix is such a recognizable character and there's not a huge barrier for entry there. And
Gotcha.
Danganronpa would be like me throwing him into the deep end, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, Chad is all saying Danganronpa.
My partner absolutely loves Danganronpa.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Danganronpa is amazing, but I don't want to. I
oh,
don't want to tell you like get into this really dense mystery game, and then you come back at me and say something like, "Why did you make me play that?"
no, that's
So,
absolutely solid advice because I tried playing it with
mhm.
her to start, and it was like, when I was like, this is, I can tell it's good and that it's not for me. So,
Yeah,
good looking out.
yeah, I do recommend starting with something relatively something that's relatively easy to begin with, like Ace Attorney,
Cool.
and
That's,
then we'll
okay.
graduate you to Danganronpa later.
Okay. Maybe I'll
That's the
I'll get
advanced
big
class.
brain enough to get there.
Okay, cool. So everybody start with Ace Attorney, as per Rachel, if you
Yes.
want to get into some good mystery games.
Yes.
But speaking of games, EA Plays 2021 conference announced a couple of new things. Some much bigger than others. But real quick, I guess we'll just pick and choose what, if anything, kind of excited us about what they had to say, right? What was the first thing they showed off? Yeah, it's not that many, so I guess I'll just go down the list and you guys can just tell me what your feelings are on any of these products. Grid Legends. This is the Codemasters team. They've been making Grid like forever, but this new racing game. I think the new hook to this is that it has kind of a live action story mode.
No, the Fast
Like
and the Furious racing game. Try that.
there was a Fast and Furious racing game with live action story.
Yeah.
Okay, I did
What?
not know about this FMV part. I knew there was a
I was-
game.
What was the name?
I was about to call it the Guitar Hero Live version of Grid, but apparently the Fast and the Furious got there first.
Too fast, too furious.
Like I want to say like there have been some like sort of FMV cutscenes in the Need for Speed franchise that I believe were notoriously bad. But this is like just straight up video, like kind of like it's a straight up TV show attached to the campaign of this game. And the thing that sparked my interest was I'm blanking on his name now, but the kid from Netflix's Sex Education. What is his name?
No idea. I'm sorry.
Chat, you guys can help me with this. I'm pretty sure. Like Sex Education on Netflix is, I think, the best Netflix show I have ever watched. Like, it's the best thing Netflix has produced, in my opinion. Spazwell, not Asa Butterfield, his best friend, his homosexual best friend. Yeah, Tommy says Sex Education is great.
I've not seen it.
You should. I absolutely recommend it. Best show on Netflix. And also, yes, Dr. Tommy says Never Have I Ever is great too. That's true. That just started its second season. That is also very funny. But anyway, I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued because they decided to hire real actors for this campaign. Like, they sort of did that with like the EA Sports games for a little bit. Like I want to say Madden did it,
They did
and like
with,
there was like a campaign like that, but it wasn't real life people. It was real actors in CG, right? Like Mahershala Ali was in one of them.
That's a
Does
weird
no one
sentence.
remember this?
I know. I believe you. I haven't seen it
They've done that
myself.
with
but-
they've done that with a few of the games. The one, what was that? Right after the Division, what was that? Where they made like a little brief movie of it to explain what was going on throughout the game, and the actors in the movie played the characters in the actual game.
Oh,
Wildland.
Spazawell had
Wow.
to search the name for me. Nkuti Gatwa is his name. The actor I'm referring to. So
Cool.
Get it.
look him up. He's really good.
I guess my question with regards to the live action cutscenes is why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a talking point, right? Because otherwise it's just another grid racing game. And like none of them have been bad as far as I know. Like
Yeah.
I don't really play them. Like I've tried a couple, I want to say, like here and there. but like it's kind of a simulation like off road. Wait, no, I'm thinking of Dirt.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Grid is more like motors, like
Crazy
asphalt
on track
motorsports.
shenanigans.
Yeah.
You know what? I guess I'm not super familiar with Grid.
No.
Like, I don't think like it's blending with like all the other single letter racing games. I mean, single word racing games.
I mean, I guess when you put it that way, that it's blending with them, I guess it would need a radical talking point, like, "Hey, we got real actors onto a set in the middle of a pandemic in order to
Right.
make this game the way, even though we could have had them, just send in their voice clips like every other sensible video game does."
And the question is, why do I care about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make or break the game for me. Unfortunately, like, there's so many games in this genre. Like, you have Forza, you have the last Forza, was it Forza 5 or 6? Then they have another one coming out. Like, there has to be something that sets them apart. And just having like live action cutscene just isn't gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something more to kind of push them over that threshold. Because I mean, Forza is probably the most popular racing game since Need for Speed Most Wanted in general. I can't think of
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, because they're at least consistent. Like,
Right.
What do you call it? Gran Turismo has such big gaps between its releases.
right.
It's hard to really compare them one to one like that. But I don't know. Like, I'm kind of a sucker for this sort of thing, especially in a sports or sports related kind of game, because all you do have is the simulation of the sport, and if you're not into the sport, that gameplay has to really kind of transcend the sport itself to catch my interest. And that's kind of what happened with Fight Night Champion. Like, I love the story in that game, but the game is also like really good. Like, it's a fun ass game. It just happens to be simulating boxing. But the story like really did a lot to endear me to that entire experience. Otherwise, it would have just been something that I messed around with for a little while, like, maybe left and moved on to other things. But the story is what has kept that with me for so long. So like, if they can kind of nail the story, and then because I'm sure like this team has made amazing racing games, like they've been doing it for a very long time. Like, if this can pull people into experiencing like the racing aspect, and then like those two things mesh, like how maybe Fight Night has in my head, maybe it can, create like a new loyal fan base. That's just my thoughts. But I get it. Like, yeah, if it's not going to add much to the actual game, especially if the story's not good.
Right.
So that's kind of a new wrinkle
Yeah.
to make sure that they have ironed out fully.
Because they say lots of egos clashing. I don't know if that necessarily builds a good story for me. Like, I could see if something like, oh, your dad was a racer and he was racing against somebody and that person caused him to crash and he died. Now your whole purpose is to be the best racer and to take the cup from this person or whatever it is. And that's your
I mean,
whole
that puts stakes into the gameplay,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's
they
what you
arbitrarily just
but just
give you
just
more
egos.
reason. Yeah. I don't know if the characters are likable in any way. Like, if you like one character and maybe hate another, like that can still get you invested because like you really want to beat this jerk
Right.
that they're showing you, right? So I don't know. I think it's a good addition to a game that generally doesn't have any kind of a single player story to latch onto.
Hmm.
Like, it can only help. I don't think it'll hurt because like the worst it'll do is be ignored, and then you just go back to playing the grid game, right?
Right.
Because that's how it was before.
Now, what would be cool is if whether you win or lose affected the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you lost,
Yes, yeah, that
something
would be cool.
different happened, but if you won, something else happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, different things like that.
The
So,
one thing I
okay.
haven't seen, I don't know if they've answered this definitively, is that in the trailers in the pre-release material, they said there are 3 main characters. Can you choose whose story to follow?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that would be interesting if you could pick which racer you want to stick with for the duration of the story.
And it does the thing where you play from another racer's perspective. You get a different context to like maybe why, if they're in the other person's story, even like why they were behaving the way they were. Like that, I feel like that. But this is how you build up something that ultimately disappoints you, right?
Fair,
Is when you,
yeah.
when you're like, oh, it'd be cool they did this, it'd be cool they did that, and then when it comes out and it's a kind of this straightforward, bland thing, then it's like, could have been better.
I hope it's really hammy. I think if the cutscenes were really
Yeah.
hammy, then I'd remember it a lot more. But I'm having water, by the way.
Yeah, I think
Somebody in
chat was
chat
asking
asked
what
about
she's
that.
drinking.
Now, do you think, let's say I don't like any of those three characters, aren't they taking a gamble by not having a creative kind of driver situation? Like I said, I just don't like any of these drivers the way they look, as far as appealing to what I would pick. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I feel like it takes away not having like that whole creative driver. I can customize my car, but I don't get to determine how I look. Like I got to pick one of these three people. So that's to me that's another. It could work or it could not work. Certain games you don't need to create a character, like The Witcher. You didn't need to create your own character because you can almost do everything you want with Geralt. And Geralt is The Witcher. That's who you're playing as. So you
Well, yeah, like they're telling
the
Geralt's
story,
story,
right?
right? And I think that's where I think some games miss that mark. Is like you have to make the decision. Either you're gonna tell this pre-made character story, or you get to participate in the story.
Mm-hmm.
But like when they kind of like how Cyberpunk did, where they're like, "Oh, this is your V
Mm-hmm.
or whatever," but clearly they wrote a V character that you're experiencing everything through.
Mm-hmm.
So like that kind of butts heads with one another. Like this does seem like they don't want you to create your character; they want you to
Right.
deal with these ones. So as long as they nail the characters that they made, maybe it'll be a fun time. But we can move on to the next game. Apex Legends has a new season, I guess, starting up, and they've introduced a new legend. A new legend who reminds me very much of
Kung Lao.
Lil Nas X.
He looks like Little Nas X meets Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat.
Kung Lao.
Oh, I
Did
didn't.
he throw the hat at anybody?
Oh my
I didn't
God.
I
notice
feel like he
that.
did. He just.
I don't even play Apex Legends, but now I'm interested.
Like the character design is like really dope.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah, I watched the cutscene thing, which is not at all representative of like the actual gameplay
No.
of Apex Legends. He's doing all sorts of flips and like tricks and stuff.
And like, looked like he was converting people to his side. It was kind of like a cult thing going on. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, it was hard to kind of get a grasp on like what his powers are. He has like little
Nanites or something.
like tiny airplanes or like shuriken that fly out of his chest. I don't know. It's a very weird trailer, but the character looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lip rings are dope, I guess, and he has an exposed belly. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Nothing wrong with
Bro,
So that
both
means
of those.
everybody on Twitter is thirsty.
that. For the belly. I mean,
I mean,
I
I'm
Yeah,
not
Apex
mad
is
at
still
it.
going strong, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good game. I enjoy playing. I just hate playing with random people, so that's why I don't play it as much as I want to. But it's a very fun game, and they're constantly adding new stuff. I just can't wait for them to add like private matches.
Yeah, do we know that that's coming? Like,
So far, they only have it for like you have to get permission from them to run like tournaments and stuff. That's the only way you can kind of do it now. It's been mentioned that it might happen, but I was expecting if there was going to be something, it would have been at this event if there was something they were working towards right now. But like you can host private tournaments, but it's not the same as creating a lobby for let's say 12 or 18 people to go into for a private match. So
yeah, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for news on that sort of thing coming to the game. But yeah, I don't play as much Apex as I would like as well. So I don't really have a ton on that. Like that game is just still going strong. More power to it. Thanks for adding more person of color characters.
yes,
Lost in Random is the next game EA showed off. This is a new third-person puzzle platformer. It looks like.
hmm
Very Alice in Wonderland. I like it.
Yeah,
I love stop motion animation.
right.
So the way this looks super cool. And also I like puzzle platformers and like
It looks kind of Leica-ish,
what?
like the
Leica?
Leica animation studio.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks like something they would have made.
That whole Wallace and Gromit effect looking from like from Elf, the way they did all the snowman and stuff like that from like the old Christmas cartoons.
Yeah, like, I can get
Mhm.
down with that, like the look of that. But its hook is that it's kind of a card system. Like I guess you get randomly assigned cards which act as like abilities, and so based on what's in your deck, you would have to choose how to, I guess, to engage enemies. I don't know if it also affects the puzzle solving, But I don't know how I feel about that. Like I'm not a big card
Um,
battler
it, it,
in general.
it adds too much randomness in an already random game. Like they tried that with the Magic the Gathering ARPG,
Hmm.
where your abilities are based on the cards that came up in your deck, but you're playing a Diablo-like game, which is already random enough. Now you're adding all these other random things into there, where it just becomes a little bit over the top. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the game would have been strong enough on its own if you just added like just the abilities in the game. Maybe unlock them from doing this puzzle or something like that. I know that's like a tried and true formula that most games do. The whole card situation, I feel like adds another layer to it, which a lot of times kind of clogs up everything else.
Yeah, like kind of maybe overcomplicates the
Yeah.
simplicity of like the puzzle platforming and whatnot. But I have not played it, so there's a chance that maybe they make it work in an interesting way. Like, I mean, definitely more power to them for trying to mix up the genre. Because yeah, like if it's just the jumping around in third person, that'll probably be boring. Because there are already like a million games that do exactly that.
See, I thought the exact opposite. I really am intrigued by the card mechanic, and I haven't played the Magic the Gathering ARPG. Um, but like looking at that seems really fun, and that you can. It looks like rather than just you're playing a card and like an effect happens. Like there's a part where it, they pull a bow from their cards, and then they actively use the bow. As like an equipped weapon, as its own thing, is what it looks like.
Yeah,
Uh,
that reminds me of like those roguelike dungeon crawlers, like
Mhm.
Dead Cells or something like that.
Yeah, and that looks really cool to me because the added mechanic of, well, I have these cards and now I have to think of how to use them together. And I also kind of enjoy deck building games, so that might be part of it.
Mhm.
Is taking. I feel like that could mash up pretty well. Again, it really depends on how they do it. They could be take any idea and make it a terrible idea if they do it wrong. But it does seem, for me, I think that looks really cool. For all the reasons
Okay.
you don't like it or don't think it might not work, which that's art.
Like it's the word random. Like
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
what has me worried because that's a thing that a lot of especially roguelike games like when they lean too heavily on the randomization aspect,
Hmm.
like things really start to fall apart and become less fun.
Absolutely.
So like they have it in the title, like they're kind of banking on the randomness of this experience. So that does kind of just put me on the back foot a little bit. But yeah, like if they can get a good balance, like regardless of what the name is or the convention of the story, they get a good balance of like making what you do matter more than like the algorithm, then it'll probably be okay. But we can move on to Knockout City Season 2. That game's been going pretty strong.
Right.
I guess they're just a new
And it was season two.
dodgeball
Yeah.
and like new maps, and that's pretty much
Well,
all they're adding to that.
yeah, some new customization too, or cosmetics.
Yeah, that game is actually really fun. So if you haven't been playing it, I implore you to check it out. I think you can play it for free up until level 25 still. I don't think they've changed that. And it's on Game Pass, so you can play that if you're just subscribed to Game Pass.
Right.
But Battlefield Portal. This is a mode attached to Battlefield 2042, which is the newest one that's coming out. Apparently, it allows players to customize kind of multiplayer situations or like maybe even single player situations. Like you can make like your own campaign or something,
You can
and you
put
can just
weapons.
pull. Yeah, and you can like pull from all the other Battlefield games that they've made in history. So like you can have Germans as enemies and then play with modern day soldiers. You can have one of the examples they showed, which was really funny to me, was like the one horse versus 20 ducks
Yeah, 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 yeah.
scenario where it was like one big tank versus like a bunch of little like
The-
APCs or some military
mhm.
hardware thing. So like the fact that you can get that crazy in this game kind of excites me because I know Battlefield has always tried to be like the bigger, more bombastic analog to Call of Duty, which is big and bombastic, but tries to take itself a little self-seriously. Like Battlefield is kind of moving away from the historical accuracy stuff and saying like, hey, let's just give them all the tools and let's be as wild and crazy as possible. Kind of like on Just Cause levels almost, it seems like. So I mean, are any of you guys Battlefield fans? And if not, does any of this stuff in Battlefield Portal maybe get you interested?
I'm not a Battlefield fan particularly, but I mean, I don't
Hmm.
have anything against the series. I think it's cool. But this looks like fun because I'm interested to see. I think they said somewhere in the press stuff that Dice or Ripple Effect, I guess it is now, have
Hmm.
to will approve the scenarios, so it's not necessarily just everybody like throwing in whatever chaotic stuff they want, and but they will instead, I think, curate fan created scenarios.
Yeah, that's an
That's what
interesting
I'm
way to go about it.
that's what I'm interested in seeing, is seeing what they allow to rise to the top. And because I mean, I feel like we've all been in player created matches before, and we've all seen what gamers typically come up with when they're given completely free reign. So I want to see them bring like the unsung gems to the top. You know, people who create the really interesting scenarios. And by really interesting scenarios, I mean I want to be put in a big tank and I just want to go around destroying everything on the map. Just, you know, basically make it like that one mini game in Saints Row where you get points
Ah,
more things you
yes.
destroy, only on an actual battlefield. I think that would be fun.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get your wish. That sounds like an easy slam dunk for some creator out there. How about you, Jesse?
Yeah, kind of what you were saying, Rachel. Battlefield is fine. I mean, I personally don't really care much about it, but I don't hate it. It's a game, cool. Life goes on. The player mode is the part that would be cool.
Mhm.
I don't think that's probably not going to be worth getting the whole game over, knowing that, oh, I hear about this cool player thing. I really want to play that, and that's it. Like, that's probably not worth the whole game.
Right.
But really like that. And I also didn't know about them kind of choosing what shows up, and I think that would be really cool to see what pops up, because there are some really great things that show up from that. Like, was it infected mode, zombie mode from Halo? That started as a
Yeah,
fan.
that was a player thing that then got adopted by Bungie or 343. I can't remember when. Probably
Yeah.
Bungie.
Let me double check my facts on that just to, I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
on the curation part, just to make sure I'm remembering that correctly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, so that part does sound cool. I don't know if it's enough to sell me on a whole game, but I like it, and I would love to have see more games have that level of openness to player creativity. I think that is almost a universally like good thing to have in a game.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation where a core part, or not a core part, I guess, but at least a part of a game that allowed you to be creative for the player base. I can't think of one where that hurt the game.
Right.
Hmm.
But how about you, Jeff? What's your take on this?
I have never played Battlefield. I am interested to try it. Assuming that the gunplay is good. I don't really care about the single player campaign because I'm probably not going to do that as long as the
Yeah, they got rid of it for
There's no
this
single player.
Okay.
release, right? Yeah,
Okay,
there's
good.
no single
Okay,
player.
good. Yeah, I mean, multiplayer, I definitely play. They did say it's not to the level of like Halo Forge, so you're not going to be able to like put rocks over here or do
Hmm.
this over there. You can do like a map and do like all shotties throughout history, like stuff like that, but you won't be able to do like as exact as Forge is, like putting a plane over here, a ghost over here, or something like that. So, uh, I would definitely need to see a little bit more, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting it if it's good.
That's a little disappointing to hear that there's some control that you kind of don't have.
Yeah, he
Because I
made
want to say like they somewhat mentioned like, oh, the players are get to use some of the tools that we the devs use or whatnot, right?
because if you
So
remember the
like,
presentation, he made sure to say that it's not Halo Forge, is not to that degree to where there's a good amount of things you won't be able to do
mhm.
when they were doing a presentation on stage. So that does give me the idea that there are some things that are limited. In Forge, you could pretty much do everything. You could put buildings over here. You can put rocks. You can put bumpers. Whatever you want to do. You can put a warthog down there. Whatever you want to do on the map, you could just do.
Like
Almost.
you can
Yeah.
build an actual map. Like you
Right.
can like use
Mhm.
boxes and like the entire map can be constructed by the player.
Yeah.
Like Forge is like kind of set the standard for that kind of stuff.
So, and also it depends on when the releases.
Real quick, I found where they said that and said, find a Battlefield Portal experience that's right for you by browsing a rotating series of featured games or a wide variety of games built by the community.
Ah, okay,
So
cool.
it's not so they will feature some things.
Right. Like they'll put stuff on like the front page or I guess for you to check out.
Right.
Which makes sense. That's a good call.
Yeah, that's really good because it's real easy to have stuff get lost if 10,000 people make a level in Mario Maker, how are you going to find the few that are good and having something like that can bring it to the front?
Yeah, Nintendo does have a feature thing, but they're still pretty bad at the curation of their Mario Maker stuff. Insightfully Daft says Battlefield Portal isn't phonetically pleasing to say. Like the cadence is all off. Yeah.
What word
Yeah,
would
those
be
words
better?
don't fit together. Yeah, like and Portal doesn't necessarily bring to mind a creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be to be honest, when I read it, I thought they were just like going to straight up rip off Splitgate as a Battlefield mode.
Oh, like they just
Where
add
you put like
portals
the
to
portal-
Battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I saw it, I was like, oh no, this is better. Okay, it's not just that.
Yeah, I don't know. Portal's probably not the best name they could have picked. But
Battlefield
they probably
Builder?
was like Battlefield Maker.
Builderfield.
Builder field.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not going to workshop what they should have done because we don't get paid for that.
Fair, fair.
Give them better titles for their game. That's their fault. But our final reveal here was a big one. Basically, a Dead Space remake or reboot. Did we get confirmation on which
Did see
this
reboot.
is?
Reboot was what I read.
Like the article from Games Radar says, look at a rebuilt Dead Space. So is it? Because I want to say like rumors around because people knew that this was coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
But rumors around it suggested that it was trying to follow the roadmap of like the Resident Evil 2 remake
Oh, okay.
and stuff like that.
EA's
So, like-
calling it a remake.
A remake,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so that would
That
make
could mean
sense. Like
anything.
they're trying to relaunch
Yeah.
the series by by basically just taking the game that everybody loved and just bringing it to the present.
Well, for me,
So I mean, does that get you guys excited?
there's a big difference to me. Like Resident Evil, if you look at the graphics between 2 and the remake, you definitely see there's been a lot of improvement. Yes, they can improve the graphics, but I feel like a reboot would have been in order because once you got to 3, the story got kind of convoluted and it just didn't make any sense. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't played it, but
Me, I haven't played it.
Me either.
I might play these games soon, though. That might be something we do.
well, maybe
on,
that
like,
and maybe that's the
on the
audience
channel.
they're going for is some of the people who haven't played Dead Space. Maybe this remake will kind of get some people into it. But I feel like a reboot would have been in order, maybe like a separate colony somewhere off in space and a different person.
I kind of feel the opposite of that.
You think so?
That like a reboot would have been for the newcomers, whereas a remake is trying to capture whoever liked the first one.
I don't know.
Because they're like, oh, I love this game. I had so many great memories with it. Sure, I'll buy the now version. Because isn't that what Final Fantasy VII remake was? Like, I mean, they did change some stuff, but they were capturing the audience of people who love those games.
I feel like there's a bigger gap between the release of Final Fantasy VII and the remake than Dead Space and this remake. And I feel like the market is just flooded with games that like that. Oh, we remade this HD remaster.
That's true.
It's just flooded. Like I want a new story, something I haven't experienced yet in the same Dead Space universe. There's just so many games that are basically the same story, same linear path or whatever, no different than the last, and it's just remade. You play Kingdom of Amalur, they remade that. What was different?
Yeah, nothing. That
Okay.
that one was a remaster, but they barely even bothered to remaster it. And that's the weird distinction that they come up with. Like remaster this is the same code, we're just kind of cleaning it up. A reboot is like this is based on that thing, but it's a new thing.
Right.
And a remake is we're gonna take the game you love and we're gonna make it again.
Right.
It's the same game. We're gonna make that game again today.
No,
And I think
games that
remakes have done really well as of late. Like that's I think why they're chasing this is because Resident Evil 2, Final Fantasy 7, like they just made the same game again, and like they sold gangbusters and reviewed, very well, and people really like them. So if you want to maybe try and bring back a dead franchise like Dead Space, go the remake route.
I just feel like there's. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
I was just going to say that I'm not sure what a remake would do because if you look at the original Resident Evil 2 or the original Final Fantasy 7, they look radically different from any game you would pick up nowadays. From,
Exactly.
if I turn on my Xbox and download a space horror game, whatnot, then it will look exactly. I mean, Dead Space does not look radically different from a space horror game that could be released now. It's not a radically different style of game than the sort of game I would play now. Whereas that was what was completely different about Resident Evil 2
True.
remake, Final Fantasy 7 remake. They were completely different games in gameplay terms, if not in story terms. And even then, there were changes to the stories, that, not to spoil anything, but I'm questioning what they can do to Dead Space that would get it to that level of that would change it to the degree that we're like, yeah, this was definitely worth the time and money that was spent making it. Like, this is different enough from the original property that I feel I have added to the experience by playing it.
Yeah, my thoughts is that.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So you both are basically saying like you feel like not enough time has passed. Like it's not old enough for technology to kind of improve on anything that the first game actually did.
I would like to see a side-by-side comparison once this is out compared to the original game. Because like she said, like it was like going from a 16-bit game to a game on 360. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a difference between Resident Evil 2 and the remake. I don't, like she said, I don't see the difference between how graphically or game-wise what the gap would be between the two.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's also just the gameplay is so modern. It's when you play Dead Space, it's a third person shooter, over the shoulder Resident Evil 4 perspective. I mean, I could pick up like the Medium and play a similar game, and that was just released not too long ago. And I'm just thinking, like, what are they going to do to the game to make it to make it feel different enough from Dead Space that I'm not just going to be not just going to think, hey, I'll just play Dead Space again because I have the 360 disc, and I would prefer that over paying $60 for a completely new game.
That is a fair point. So yeah, the impetus is on them to basically make it worth your time to revisit this in that new capacity. Because honestly, that's kind of how I felt about Mass Effect, because that just got its remaster, and I'm like, I played those games, I love those games. Don't see any need to play through them again just because they look prettier and maybe run better on the newer hardware. Like they didn't remake them, they didn't change anything about them, and like, yeah, if they had said that it was a remake, like they were going to rebuild them from the ground up, I probably still wouldn't be interested, because like it's the same game that I played. So yeah, it wouldn't be radically different, and this does seem to be in that vein. So yeah, we have to see, I guess, more of it and see if they do make some changes. But if they do make changes, then they're going to anger the people who just want Dead Space again, and that's probably not what they're looking to do. But who knows? These remakes tend to sell well. This is the first one, I think, with as small of a time gap between the first release and the next one, or at least the similarities that you guys are pointing out in terms of their gameplay style. So we'll see if this actually does well, because the future of the franchise probably hangs in the balance. They're probably counting on this game to kind of bring the franchise back.
I tell you, when they started the trailer, I thought that was the new System Shock game.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, well, I mean, not seriously, because I knew Dead Space remake had been rumored, but I mean, I'm saying in terms of the, it's the same sort of style that when they released the trailer for System Shock 3, it was pretty much the exact same kind of trailer. It's like, hey, dark space station corridor, there's lots of fog everywhere for some reason. I don't understand why.
Hella fog in space.
Right.
Yeah,
Then they
that
see
space fog.
the necromorph, and then I'm like, okay, this looks exactly like the trailer for Dead Space. Okay.
Okay, so we'll wrap up the EA recap unless anyone has any final thoughts on that before we get into the big, heavy topic here. No? All right. Okay, so the industry has been kind of thrown into turmoil once again, as Activision Blizzard has been accused of several infractions regarding its female employees, minority employees. Essentially, they've been accused of having an atmosphere of a frat boy culture, where kind of the women employees especially are kind of not treated equally to the males. Like they get paid less, they get more supervision, they get promoted less. They're essentially put down. There've been numerous stories that have been coming out on Twitter since this lawsuit was filed against them, where people have basically been confirming these kind of allegations. And trigger warning for anyone in chat who may be finding this kind of stuff hard to hear. Like, some women have been sexually assaulted and what was described as cube crawls, some sort of like company event where like guys will like crawl around through the office, like underneath cubicles, like underneath female employees' desks, and kind of just invade their space and like grope them inappropriately during this time period. Business trips where like leadership has essentially like brought sex toys along with them and like possibly like assaulted female employees in those instances. And there's one instance where a female employee after such a trip committed suicide.
Committed suicide on the trip.
On the actual trip, mm-hmm. Right. So like numerous stories of this kind of stuff going on. And then after this information came out, Activision replied to all the allegations by essentially saying this isn't true. Like, these accusations are false. They're frivolous. It's an irresponsible lawsuit from California, that they foster a community of positivity, blah, blah, blah. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially they're kind of denying any of this. They're saying that whatever is true happened like a long time ago and doesn't reflect the company as it is today. And essentially that that there is no problem. That the company is fine, like, everyone is well taken care of, there's no problem. And essentially that is their stance on this, which has left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, right? So I want to ask you guys kind of like, because this isn't the first time we've heard these sorts of stories, but Activision, one of the biggest, kind of already frowned upon companies for a bunch of other reasons, to hear that this is going on there, like what does that immediately kind of put in your head about them? Like how does this all make you feel, I guess?
One quick thing, the lawsuit doesn't say that this stuff only happened. It says that they never tried to improve upon this culture that was going on. They apparently
like
got
management has essentially
they got
management knew about it.
Yeah, they got
the entire time
before. So
they never removed the offenders. They never punished them in any significant way. They were given at best slaps on the wrist, which I wish I could say that surprised me, but it doesn't.
Yeah, like this, like the thing is, like, none of these kinds of stories are new, mm-hmm. which is the sad thing. And it's like what are the repercussions after this kind of stuff comes out, right? Usually, and this is the thing that a lot of folks will cry about. They'll say like, oh, it's cancel culture, right? Like, oh, people are afraid of people saying this thing, that thing, and then they get canceled. But then on the off chance that someone canceled them accidentally, their career is ruined or whatnot, right? I'll go out and say I don't believe there's been a single person who's been canceled by accident. Like, I don't think that has actually happened in the history of this whole cancel culture thing. If someone gets accused of something and it gets found out that that wasn't true, even if there's vitriol at first, those people don't hang around. Like, even if they can't muster the sense to say sorry, they won't continue to harass you, as far as I'm aware. And I'm not an expert on this, but in general, when someone is canceled, it's because they did something bad. And these are the consequences of their actions, which they kind of are sad that they have to now deal with, right? So when you have a company like Activision, very, very powerful company, a company that makes billions of dollars a year, like has ties to political affiliations and stuff. Like Activision, or at least Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision, is a known campaign contributor. Like it's not surprising that this is how the company he runs operates. The question is, like, what can any of us really do about it? Like this is what I'm trying to maybe get to the bottom of. Like what avenues do we have to try and get this to change? Like what is the entity that did the investigation? California,
The Department of Fair Employment and Housing.
yeah, Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Like, so this is their job, right?
Yeah.
To investigate companies for this sort of thing. This was a 2-year investigation where they've come out with a lawsuit to force them to change.
And
is this the avenue? Like, is this the only way we can get companies to do this, by having these sorts of organizations do these investigations? Like, I'm wondering.
Well, I think the counterpoint, the reason why I'm not sure that would be effective is you didn't mention the part of the response from Activision that probably is the worst part of all of it, is where they essentially threatened to leave California as that's essentially what they said. They said it's things like this that are making it difficult for businesses to survive in California. Something like that. So basically saying, if you keep threatening us, we'll pick up our ball and leave and take our business and our jobs and the money that we make for the state elsewhere. And it would be
Wow.
so tempting to say, well, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. But that has huge economical, political, social implications. That
Right.
is why businesses get away with this, is because they can say stuff like that in public on the record, and they get away with that because it's true and they know that they have that sort of power. And so, as much as I want to say, yeah, they've been sued by the state of California, so they're going to face consequences for that, as much as I want to believe that's what's going to happen, I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen. I want to trust the state of California. I want to trust the process and the system. But Activision's essentially coming back and saying, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And that scares me, that they're saying that so publicly and so blatantly, I think.
And
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I think that's where, unfortunately, that's where cancel culture comes in at. People have had these thoughts, these things have gone on for a long time. The difference is now it comes out, their bottom line gets hurt. That's what they care about. They don't care about what I think or you think. They care about what the masses think, and that's who are going to cancel them. One person can make a difference, yes. Now, before it was, oh, it's just that one person, but millions of people not buying your product or boycotting your business, you can't sustain your livelihood like that, and they know that. So that's why, I think they had a couple of statements released from Blizzard president J. Allen Brack. He denounces the bro culture. He said he's failed women. Same thing for the ex Blizzard chief Mike Morhaime. He said the same thing. He's extremely sorry that I failed. Do you think it's possible for these things to go on without the president of the company to know about these things, or the ex-chief to know that these things were going on when he was there? Now, I get it. Everybody puts on a face when, oh, we're getting a big visit. President's coming, of the company, or corporate's coming. Let's make sure everybody's on their P's and Q's. Obviously, they're not going to be doing those things, but I'm sure a lot of people complain, and it went up to that level. There's no way that this person didn't know about it before it got to a lawsuit. In which point, it was their responsibility to monitor the situation, to make sure that these things weren't being done, and that the offenders who committed these acts were terminated. I mean, you can't build a culture like that. For all this to be going on, people were too comfortable knowing that there would be no repercussions.
Right. Yeah. It is a culture that was built by the people on top. Like, that's what a corporate culture is, right? Like, very rarely, I think, do like the lowest level workers kind of dictate the feel of the company, right? So, like, yeah, it's the leadership that says this is okay. Like Casual Friday, for example, like that's dictated from the top down. Like, they shape the behavior, and they sanction what's okay and what's not okay. Because if you got in trouble for behaving a certain way, those people wouldn't be around. But the fact that they are, kind of sanctions it, and it silences the people who are kind of suffering in the midst of it. And like as long as Activision has been around, like it seems like that has only grown. Like they've only gotten more comfortable and okay. And like Rachel was saying, now that they're kind of this giant entity, like they're a staple of like the economic system of California, like they can make a threat like that where like, oh, we'll just move someplace else. And like whoever wants to hold them to account will have to evaluate like what that means. Like they'll have to take that into consideration because like they'd be screwing over however many people's jobs or the the revenue streams that fund public services or whatnot, because whatever taxes that company pays are like a big portion of like what the state uses to kind of run itself. And like they as sucky as that is, they can't ignore it. Like it would be irresponsible to ignore it.
And this is where I think where things come into play where as a judge I'm saying, okay, you're being sued and your result is threatening to leave a state. My thing is for you to understand that if you do decide to you're going to leave, whatever money that's being asked will compensate for you moving to fill in that gap. So if the lawsuit was for $10 million, you're going to pay $50 million. Okay. So you determine if that's enough money to justify you moving. Also, other states got to put their foot down and saying, you did that there. We're not going to allow you to come and do that here. Either
Yeah, that's what I would hope for, right?
You fix your stuff there, or your home, you can work out of your home. Like, figure it out. Like, it's just not going to happen. And the fact that
So is that us then? It's like
Yeah,
us
that's
as
us.
like the communities that make these, because like we're the ones who are voting for these elected officials to basically represent that kind of stuff. Like if we make a big enough stink, do you think that'll get them to make a stink about Activision? Or is it and again, I might be being a little cynical here. Is that all part of the same problem? Because like I'm sure Activision has paid for a lot of these senators and governors
Yeah.
and whatnot. Like they've given them money to kind of look the other way for other crap that they've wanted to do. Like we know for a fact Bobby Kotick has donated to the Trump campaign,
Right.
and that's full of a whole bunch of shitty people.
Mm-hmm. And it's like what's the name of the organization? It's been around for years, where all these corporate CEOs sit around and they help to send laws to Congress to help get passed. They lobby for those laws.
lobbying.
Yes, but there's a specific organization that's been behind a lot of laws. I mean, Walmart sits on that. I'm gonna find it in a minute, but where a bunch of CEOs they push to get laws passed. They push politicians who are going to push their agenda, so that way they can pass these laws, so that way they feel more protected. And that's the same thing that they've been doing for years, but I think it's going to come to the point where they know that this type of behavior doesn't fly. The fact that they did nothing about it, and there could have been a gap in between communication where one person wasn't, whoever was the head of that building wasn't filtering that information up. I don't see how that happened if all these complaints went to HR. That's supposed to be a separate entity where they judge things as a neutral party. But
And that's clearly not how
yeah,
any of that has worked,
and
right? Because
for it to continuously keep going, they had to see that there was the last person get in trouble. They didn't nothing happened to them, so it's cool. I can do this. Nothing's gonna happen to me. It's
Absolutely
different.
not just HR that failed.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
just say that, yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely. It was failures all around, but there had to be a gap in between somewhere for the president to say he didn't know that this stuff was going on. It's just not possible, um, because all they needed to make an example of one person, and then this behavior would have either stopped, it would have lowered, or they would have just kept getting rid of the problems. And eventually, the workplace would have been what it was. But obviously, at no point did that happen. Like, I doubt anyone was reprimanded, because that would have been the first thing they would have said. Oh, well, we let go numerous people who were instances of sexual harassment or inappropriate contact was reported. None of that has come out.
Wait, can I read you something from the actual complaint? There
go
was
ahead.
somebody from the company. I don't know how to pronounce this man's last name, so I apologize. Alex Afrasiabi,
Mm.
Afrasiabi, something like that. And he was one of the people who was handsy with female employees, groped
Oh,
them, tried to kiss them, asked them to marry him. He was so known to engage in harassment of females that his suite was nicknamed the Cosby Suite. And
My God.
this was known to Blizzard's executives, and president of Blizzard Entertainment, J. Allen Brack, allegedly had multiple conversations with Afrasiabi about his drinking and that he'd been too friendly towards female employees at company events, but gave him verbal counseling in response to these incidents. So everybody knew. I'm not willing to accept that this was just something that was said to HR and they didn't pass it up the corporate ladder. Everybody in this company knew. And it's not just a couple of bad apples who have spoiled the bunch. I mean, if what is said in this complaint is anywhere near factual, this was a company-wide thing. This was everybody being involved, being complicit. And I mean, just the amount of times it is said that, male employees would goof off and play video games while female employees had most of the work shuffled onto them. This is not a case where there were a couple of guys who just got too handsy and then corporate was not informed about it. Everybody knew, but for some reason they just decided that, it was worth more to them to just tell the guy, "Hey, stop that," and not do anything else. Because actually confronting the issue, I think, requires accepting that something was actually wrong, and there are a lot of people who don't want to accept. There are a lot of people within the company who would not want to accept that under any circumstances, because either because this is their friend or because they don't see anything wrong with his behavior.
Yeah, or worse, they've exhibited the same behavior. So like they're gonna reprimand someone for basically doing the same stuff that they do.
Hmm.
Like it just wouldn't make sense, right? From the top to bottom, like the company's kind of infected with that sort of mindset, and then all the victims are just trapped in the middle.
Right.
It's really sad, and it's really like I mean, like I wanted to talk about possible solutions, but I already knew like there's no easy answer to kind of fixing this. Like what we want to happen is for the people who are doing bad to be taken to task, to be reprimanded, to be fired, to be ejected from the company. But for that to be the route that's taken, the company would need to see the stuff as they're doing as bad, and
Well,
like that doesn't seem to be the case.
yeah, and I challenge the notion that it's just some guys, that it's just
Right.
a couple of bad, a couple of. I concur that there are people who were the worst, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a case of like, oh, there's just a bunch of cool bros at Activision, and then there's a couple of guys that they let go a little too far.
Right.
I do not think that's the case. I think it's just there's a huge gradation going on here of, like, yes, I'm sure there are wonderful men who have worked at Activision Blizzard. I'm sure they're just mensches, but there is like a whole level here. It's like maybe you weren't the person who had the Cosby suite, but you're somewhere in there. It's not a case of like really just awesome guys and then this and then the Cosby suite. There's a whole spectrum in there of
Mm-hmm.
guys who participated in this culture, because I don't want to accept or even entertain the notion that this is just, well, let's just get the bad guys out of here. It's not just,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Because
you want to oust the whole company. That would be like, I mean, obviously that's not the solution, but I mean, I think this would involve,
exactly. Yeah. Like
Right.
that's kind of where the circle keeps coming around. Because like, what do you do? Like,
Well, that's their
if
fault. It
the
got so
specific
long.
person has been complained about, get rid of that person. But then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person, until you don't have a company, and that's good
Well, that's
in a way, but also you don't have a company. So should there just not be an Activision?
and that's the thing. Where here's the thing: if you find one person stealing, you fire that person. What that does is that lets other people know you're watching. So if they were thinking about stealing, now they have second thoughts. They also see the repercussions of doing something like that, right?
Mhm.
It discourages them from doing it. A good person otherwise could steal out of necessity. This is just different. Now, but if they see that those repercussions are different, are are there, that's going to happen, that you're watching, that you know what's going on, they're less likely to do that. It's almost the same thing here, where if they would have been proactive in kind of dismantling this bro culture, it would have been less of an impact. It's your fault that you'll have to get rid of most of your company for these things because you didn't nip it in the bud. some of these things might not have happened if you took a firm stance in the beginning and said, no, we're not going to allow this. For all these people to be doing it, they're too comfortable knowing that nothing's going to happen.
Right.
There are no.
Exactly. And because they're that comfortable, like the leadership who hasn't acted on any of this stuff, that then calls into question the entire company. It's like, so yeah, like the leadership can't be like, all right, well, now we'll get rid of the bad people, because the leadership are one of the bad people because they haven't acted on this stuff, right? So like, again, it's like, and I'm not saying like we have to find this answer, but it's like, what the hell do you do about that? Like I would want, I guess, I would want there to be no Activision.
Yeah.
And then Activision's implosion would be kind of a sign to other companies where we know this sort of stuff is also happening, for them to maybe try and get their act together before it gets as bad as Activision, if it's not already.
Well, here's the
Right.
thing. The women were already doing most of the work anyway. The people who are the victims were the ones doing all the work. These guys were just goofing off. So obviously they weren't much of an asset to begin with. So have a fair company. Your work determines your promotions, not, hey, I'm cool with this guy. Me and him are real buddy buddy. Hey, it's like those old cheesy, teen romps where the bully's having the geek do his homework. Hey, I need my homework by Wednesday, and that person gets all the credit. No, that's is these people are doing the work. Obviously, their work should speak for themselves. Anybody who's not toting the line of obvious human decency, don't go around touching somebody, then they shouldn't be there. That's taught in like kindergarten. Don't touch someone you shouldn't touch. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and Lampy brings up a really good point in the chat. It says the complaint that was filed had two different issues in it. First issue was the harassment. Second issue was the systematic discrimination of women in Activision. So make sure not to conflate the two issues. It's not just about the harassment.
Well, the two issues have
Right.
the same root
Yeah,
cause,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
True.
I think it's deep-seated misogyny that is rooted in this whole Silicon Valley teenage boys stuck
For
in the
sure.
body of a man culture.
For sure.
And again, I feel that there are a lot of people who would want me to say not everybody within that setting is like that. And again, maybe they aren't, but that is the general culture that has been fostered by this sort of Silicon Valley tech bro system. This is what they think is okay to do. The fact that I think one of the stories they mentioned is about a woman who was denied for promotion because she might get pregnant someday. It's this deep-seated dislike and fear of women. I think there were so many women in the company who were not paid as much as men, and when they complained, they were told that they were the problem. And the other women who were told that they weren't going to get a promotion because they might get pregnant and become stay-at-home moms. That was literally the justification, by the way. The woman was not even pregnant at the time. Women were kicked out of lactation rooms so that the rooms could be used as meeting rooms, which they weren't meeting rooms, they were lactation rooms.
Yeah, they were for that purpose, but they
Yeah.
still didn't respect them enough to even allow that.
Were they stuck
Yeah.
in a bubble or something in the 1940s or 50s?
It's the power. It's the, like, they become big company leaders, right? And then a lot of people around them don't get to tell them no anymore.
Well, that is the only thing they have over women. That is the advantage they think they have, is that a woman can get pregnant. So that's the difference between us. Let's use that against her. It's not that they genuinely think, oh, this woman might no longer be an asset to the company because she might put her family first. They don't actually care about that. I mean, at no point does it actually enter their minds that, well, this woman might want to create human life one day. So, perhaps it's wise not to invest too much in her. That is not the actual thought process that goes through their head. It's that, well, that's the difference between us. So, I'm going to use that as an excuse to keep her down.
So my question is, does skill make up for these? We can't do anything against this person. They're doing shitty stuff, but we need them to put this out, or we need their skills. Do you think that's the case?
Wouldn't that be like exploitation?
Well,
though, like, cause they could still not respect them, try to keep them down, but then, like,
No, what I
some of the
mean
examples
is,
says, shovel a bunch of extra work on them because they know that they can actually do the work.
my thing is, no, these people who aren't here's the thing. If Let's like having a star player on your team, right? They might not show up for
Hmm.
practice. They might not. They might be late for games, but when they're on the court or whatever they're doing, they're fantastic at it. So we ignore all the bad stuff because they're good at what they do.
Oh, okay. You're saying it was like a star developer
Yeah.
Mhm.
or something. So like they're beyond reproach.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that's been. I'm sorry, Jesse. I feel like we're not letting you talk at all.
No, I can't
Um,
say it better than any of you, so I am just agreeing.
I feel like there have been people within the gaming community who have gotten away with things on that basis. Like I think, mm, I don't want to speak to, like 'cause if I name names, it sounds like I'm complimenting someone's skill. But I mean, like Chris Avallone, for example, people knew for a long time that he was a creep, but he was like a renowned game writer. So people
Hmm.
sort of just like, well, we really want Chris Avallone to write our games, and if he's maybe been a little bit too much for some women, then, we're willing to like pretend we don't believe that that is an actual thing. And it was only when somebody came out and publicly denounced him for it that they're like, okay, we're gonna not have Chris Avallone work on our projects anymore. So I think that is the case in some with some people in the games industry that they're like, well, this having this person's name attached to our project is such a big deal that we'll overlook whatever they're doing. But I don't think that's the case for everybody who is involved in this. I think that explains some of it, but definitely not all of it.
Looking through chat a little bit here.
Hmm.
Insightful Dap says, "Yeah, I'm not sure anyone's skills are that valuable to any large project to justify this kind of behavior."
Yeah.
And Dark Time says, "I think there are a lot of people with a lot of skill and talent who are not creeps.
Exactly.
If only they get their voice heard, we'll quickly have new stars instead of these creepy man children."
Hmm.
Exactly. If the thing was set up so these people were rightfully ejected, people who deserve the position would be able to take it. People who are respectful would be able to take it.
All right. And I think a lot of these companies need to do not really necessarily in the sensitivity training, but I don't know what you call it. Like as far as like sex and race, and there should be some type of like workshop or something that these people need to kind of be involved in and let them know that hey, this is a safe place. If there's something going on that shouldn't go on, that we kind of you can speak up about it. Like I think having a third party kind of go in and do these things is where it's going to make the difference. Just doing it in the house, you have the same people who are committing these acts are the same people who are investigating them. So there's no it's not going to go anywhere. But if you have a
Yeah,
third,
they're all just
yeah,
part of that internal
exactly.
system that doesn't actually want to fix the problem.
And that, unfortunately, it kind of ties into some of the deep culture Rachel was talking about, in that that is something that they do. I think in the case of Activision, they might have done that, or in the case of, I think it was Rocksteady was another one that came out, that they had the solution was, well, we're going to do a seminar about it. The problem being in the culture that you go to it, but it doesn't change the attitude. Nobody who goes cares. They don't
No.
really think they've done something wrong. They think that, okay, well, in order to do this, now I just have to put up with this. It doesn't change their attitude. It doesn't change the culture, and that is a massive problem.
I think it's very difficult to make somebody respect somebody that they don't. And that is the fundamental problem, is that these men do not respect their female colleagues. They don't respect them as autonomous beings. They don't respect them as game developers. And it's very difficult to just turn around and, try to put them in whatever like reform sentiment. And by the way, if you're saying that, Jeff, that people need somebody to go to as a third, I think that's actually what this DFEH investigation was supposed to be. That some that they could approach them and say, this is what my experience with the company, these are the people who I feel have been uh the biggest part of the problem. And even then, I mean, they've spoken to the only entity I think that would even be capable of holding Activision Blizzard accountable outside the company, and I'm still not sure it's going to do anything. And
Yeah,
I
like
think I saw somebody
their senior
online.
man.
I saw somebody
No, I'm
online
sorry. Go
say
ahead.
that we're going to see a new Overwatch character any day because that's how they're going to divert attention away from this, or they're going to reveal what the next Call of Duty game is, and they're going to try to make the millions and millions of people who are still going to buy the Call of Duty game drown out the people who are still complaining about it. And as sad as it makes me, there's a part of me that's just going, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
yeah,
it's it's the power of the corporation. Like capital C capitalism in this country is what is the fuel behind the misogyny, the racism, all that stuff.
yeah,
And so like it is so demoralizing when like the state of California, in trying to do what it's supposed to do for once, like it falls on deaf ears because the company knows how powerful it is. It turns around and says like, well, we don't know, you're full of shit. Like they don't have a sense of threat. Like they
yeah.
don't think that there's something that they need to change. Like it's just the state of California. Like we can get through this. It's kind of the attitude that they shot back with.
Hmm.
So it's like it's very demoralizing. It's very upsetting. And like we already had like a lot of reasons to kind of dislike Activision, but some of them were maybe more superficial than others. Like maybe just like a sense of them not being consumer friendly or just not being creative focused, like in terms of like the content that they produce. But this goes so far beyond that, in a sense that like, how do you as an individual even feel like engaging with any of their content? Like, because there are still people, probably some of those women developers who make a living at Activision Blizzard. And then if you just maybe wholesale boycott all the products that come from them, then it's like
True.
they
Yeah.
they kind of suffer in that way too. Like, is that something that you think will actually start to happen? Is this a sensible strategy to make Activision Blizzard take notice? Like, I don't know.
You do 'em like you do Cuba. They put all these tariffs on Cuba, right? Because of all their poor dealings in the international community. They put all these tariffs on their trade and everything like that. You put that on the CEO. Now you're touching the main person's pockets. You better believe he's going to get to the root cause of everything that's going on and start to get it fixed. You know what I'm saying? This what they showed where it was an issue before where the Blizzard CEO got paid. Well, he had like a 50 or 20. I don't know the exact number. It was a pretty high, like $20 million bonus. But then they had to lay off. They were laying off a bunch of people. You remember that
I
happened?
think you're talking about yeah, Bobby Kotick.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you hit the person in charge. You hit their pockets, and then that's gonna trickle down because but shit runs downstream. It falls right down the hill. So you go to him, and then he's gonna have no choice because obviously he doesn't want his pockets to be get hit, and he's gonna start to kind of filter that down, and then they're gonna get to the root cause of this. But it is gonna require a purge because unfortunately, even the good people, or if there were, they watch this happen, which makes them equally as culpable. You watching someone get groped, and you're sitting next to them in their cubicle. Unfortunately, if you're gonna fire me, guess what? I'm having a nice little lawsuit. Why did they fire me? They fired me because this dude was over here doing something he wasn't supposed to do, and I punched him in the neck. It just happened. So either way, you watched when you had avenues to do something about it.
Well, I think that one thing that I want to point out, because Honey mentioned it in the chat, is that women who speak up are often not believed or are in some way tried to, people try to shift blame onto them as well. And that's another, I mean, I personally would like to see actual criminal charges brought, but I know that unfortunately, just kind of being a sexist asshole is not a criminal offense. But so I acknowledge that nothing is going to happen in that regard. But I think about the woman who committed suicide because I mean they mentioned this in the chat, so I'm just gonna say it, and I'm sorry if this is a deeply uncomfortable subject to talk about, but
No, definitely get into it.
people are saying she was in a relationship with her boss. And like, let's look at the context of that a little bit there. Because not only were pictures of her vagina circulated at a company Christmas party, but she was in a relationship, I'm doing air quotes if you can't see me, with her boss and who brought along lube and butt plugs on that same company trip they were on. The fact that, well, we already know there's a systematic problem, there's a systemic problem of harassment at this company and bosses who get a little too handsy with their female employees. And the fact that she committed suicide on that trip tells me that that was probably, she might not have had as much agency in that relationship as the word relationship implies.
Right.
And
So
that is the most extreme example. I doubt she was the only one. I'm sure there were, I think about, for just her, she probably has 20, 30, 40 more women who were just like her at the company who did not end their lives but left the games industry, left the company, burned out, uh, just moved away feeling disgraced and shamed by the situation. I have no doubt she was not the only one this happened to. It was just the most extreme outcome in that case. And it's just, I, I think about her every time I think about this situation because I just think that if, obviously, I don't want to say that somebody killing themselves is the and again, I'm sorry that we have to keep bringing this up, but I just keep thinking about her throughout this whole event. I don't want to say that it was solely like, because obviously there were a lot of other people who worked for this company and this did not happen to all of them. But the kind of culture this creates is just such a, it's everywhere within the company. And at this point, I frankly don't care if there are good people within the company. It's at this point I am so cynical about the whole situation that when somebody says, "Well, this hurts everyone, not just the bad people," like I don't care anymore. And if I thought me boycotting Blizzard products, which I am, Activision Blizzard products, which I am doing, would actually hurt the company, I would probably feel more self-righteous about it. But I mean, and that's all I can do. And it's so sad because this is such a
Mm-hmm.
depressing conversation because every solution I think of, like, well, let's not play Call of Duty or Blizzard or Overwatch or World of Warcraft. It's like, that's great. What about the millions of people who are going to play it because they don't care?
Right.
And well, there's a lawsuit brought against, like, great. How much are they going to be fined and how quickly are they going to pay it? I mean, the only thing I can think of would be to make Bobby Kotick pay all the reparations to the female employees himself. Because I tell you what, you get the people up at the top to start paying out of their own pocket for this, and you probably start to see some of that culture clear up
absolutely.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That is the only
Right.
thing I've been able to think of.
And that's never the consequence, right?
No.
Like they're not going to take them to court and rule exactly that. They're going to say this company, which is already several $billion in the green, has to pay something like $100 million at worst. So like that's nothing to them.
Right.
Like they'll pay it and they'll go on their merry way. And like yeah, like the individual boycotts, like it's hard to really see the impact on a company this big, and the legal ramifications, like again, like the fact that they kind of just scoffed at the fact that there's a lawsuit being thrown at them by the state of California, like goes to show you like they're already above that. Like
Right. That's why it needs to be federal charge. They need to forward this up to a higher court. This needs to be a federal case. It doesn't need to be a state case, so they can just go from one state to the next. This needs to be a
and
federal
then
case.
and then it gets even more depressing because the federal government is also in the pocket of big
Oh
corporations.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if Activision has to be acted upon by the federal government, then that means Google,
Yep.
Amazon, Apple, all these other tech bro companies are going to have to start facing the same kind of regulation, and it's probably the same sort of culture at the heart of them as well.
And that's what
And it's
cancel
like it's
culture
the
comes in.
whole dark root of this country, which was from the very beginning built on the backs of exploiting other people, treating other people as lesser. Like that's the entire foundation of this country. And like stories like this just show you how widespread it is. And this is just a peek at it. And then like whenever this situation kind of blows over for them, like we'll pretend somehow, or at least the people who have the privilege of not, you know, of not having to pay attention to this kind of stuff all the time, will pretend that it was just this one instance and now things are back to normal. And like, and that's honestly like the worst part of all of this is like we want there to be some sort of resolution or some sort of solution to fixing this when we can see it, like when it's right in our face, You want to say, how do we fix this? And way too often the answer is we can't. Like, we cannot fix this unless we go all the way to the beginning and fix everything that's wrong with the entire society. And that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
we don't have an answer to how to get to the bottom of this, and it sucks.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
the worst part to me is that game development is such a meat grinder anyway. There are people who there are white men in the industry who burn out, who leave because game development has we have crunch, we have people being overworked, we have people who are laid off constantly within the industry, people who are never even given full-time work, people, people who are contractors and who are their contracts end abruptly with no negotiation. It's a really hard industry to get in and stay in, and it's an industry that's very easy to burn out. And I just think on top of that, if you're a woman, especially a woman of color in the games industry, and you have to deal with all of this nonsense on top of how hard it is already to be a game developer, to be even when you're part of the company with the highest profits in the gaming industry, who can afford to pay who can afford to pay you a fair salary 3 times over, probably. But of course, they aren't going to do that. It's still such a hard thing to be part of, and then, to have to worry that your male colleagues are going to come up and grab you when you don't when or are going to circulate pictures of you that you don't want out there. It's it's almost, people always ask, why aren't there more women in games? Well, do you want me to draw you a picture?
Mhm.
I mean, and again, I hate to look at it and say I'm sorry, but this is just the way it is, and I don't want to accept it. I don't
Right.
want it to be that way, but that is the way it is.
Yeah, it's a harsh reality.
Yeah. And I
But
don't
I
have a
mean,
solution. I'm sorry.
right. Yeah, like even on like the individual level, like yes, like Rachel said, not gonna touch Activision Blizzard products, not gonna talk about their games if I can help it. That's kind of the best you could hope to do as an individual. But yeah, it's hard to see what that does to the company, like what impact that has. Like at the very least, just in your own life, try to be less of a
Yeah,
misogynist,
just don't be a shit person.
man or
That's
woman.
it.
Try, like, look at the world around you, look at the people around you, the stuff that's happening, and try to be an ally and an active voicer of your dissent to that kind of behavior. Like, that's the best I think you can do as an individual. Like, outside of like the video game stuff, like, because it goes so much deeper than that. Real quick, gonna go through chat one more time. They were discussing that it might be a better idea to actually stay in California courts because they have better chances of enacting actual consequences against the company. And Lampy says, again, most of these issues need to be dealt with by federal protections. The U.S. needs better protection of working rights in general, including things like crunch, like Europe has, and the U.S. is really far behind on workers' rights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if there's too much more to get into with this.
It's a really
We
long
kinda
show.
ranted a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we've been on for a bit, but I'm glad we had this conversation. I really appreciate you for being here with us, especially Rachel, because I know like this was something that was weighing on you recently as well.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a platform to speak about this publicly, because
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I mean, obviously I feel like I'm a person who I recognize that I have great privilege because I, I I have independent ways of speaking about issues myself.
Hmm.
So if whether it's my personal experiences or general experiences within the games industry, I have I have the Escapist, which I'm sure if I ever needed to open up about that, I mean, and I have you guys who are supporting me, which I just by having me here, which I really appreciate, and I recognize that I have privilege in this, and it's the best. This is the best way I can think to make use of it. And I think the only way that I can make a difference in this situation is to just not let the issue be forgotten. If it does turn out, if Activision or Blizzard does turn around next week and say, "Hey, here's some new footage for Overwatch 2," or "Here's the new Call of Duty game," I can just say, "Great. what are you going to do about the systemic problems with sexism and sexual harassment in your company? I don't want to talk
Yes.
about the game. I want to talk about that. That's the best I can do, and I recognize that I have great privilege for being able to do that. So, and I do want to say that I appreciate you guys for having me and letting me. I mean,
Right.
I really, really do appreciate you having me.
No, like I'm super glad that you were able to make this show.
Absolutely.
Don't want you to feel like this was the only reason we had you here. Like I want you to be back on the show when we have much happier topics to talk about for sure. So we'll be seeing more of Rachel in the future. Speaking of Rachel in the future, why don't you let these folks know where they can find the rest of your work as we sign off here? Like where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Rachel Kaiser. It's my name right above up there, and all one word. And everything goes through my Twitter. Anything I do, like if I post on Instagram, even my private Tumblr, that all goes on my Twitter. Which, by the way, I'm going to be posting about the Golden Girls later today. That's something I don't do for the
Nice.
Escapist. That's just a thing I do for myself. But yeah, if you want to read what I write about games, you can find me on The Escapist, where I write the column Spoiled. And I should have a Spoiled column coming out today, I think. I will have to double check. The fact that I don't even remember at this point, my mind is a sieve.
Yeah, there's so much stuff coming out on that site. Who knows when anything comes anymore?
But yeah, if you wanna see what, and I'm also on Escape the Galaxy, which is the Escapist Star Wars show, which you can find on their channel on YouTube. And I do that with Marty and Omar. And we just had an episode where we talked about the 2 latest episodes of the Bad Batch. So that's where you can find me.
Nice. Jesse, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, you could find me on Twitter as well. Look, it's right there. It's Rexicon Jesse, and that's if I'm on Reddit, all that jazz. It's Rexicon Jesse. I do streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Rexicon Jesse. I'll be starting a new thing for Behind Schedule there out of tomorrow, and of course, there's a new Behind Schedule on the Escapist. You can check that out too. And the big thing that's been happening for me recently, I have a Kickstarter that's starting Tuesday. Yeah, it launches Tuesday. You can go and I have it pinned to my top tweet, a link directly to it, so you can hit the notify me when it launches if you want to. That actually does help me. For anybody who's interested in tabletop RPG stuff, it is a book of low-powered, ridiculous magical items that are there to encourage role-playing and creative thinking at the table. Without being so powerful they break a game. So if you're into tabletop RPG stuff, you could check that out. It's called Grinderbin's Mobile Market of Ridiculous Magic Items is the full title.
Nice. And how about you, Jeff? Where can people find you? What you doing this week?
Yep. You can check me out tomorrow for Monday Night Siege at 7 p.m. Eastern. Come through, come play, come watch. And then this Thursday we have the Omniverse comic discussion. Topics to come. We'll be talking about the new casting for Black Panther and what that means for the MCU, and the possible ramifications from the season finale of Loki, and some new casting in was that Spider-Man Far From Home? Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. You can find me at SigmaGears9. You're already on my Twitch. Follow my Twitter to see all the other stuff I do, like A Marvelous Escape. We just released our thoughts on the Black Widow movie, so check that out. I do that with Darren Mooney and Amy Campbell. We just, I want to say last week, released Adventure is Nigh, which is the D&D show with me, Jesse, Yahtzee, and Amy playing characters in a Jack Packard-led D&D campaign. First episode apparently has been, very well received. Like it's so nice to see how much everyone's enjoying that. Like we had a fun time making it. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. More to come. Like we'll be shooting more episodes of that for the future because apparently it went really well.
People have been doing fan art and posting it on Twitter.
Yes.
And I'm always
I love
see
seeing that.
Great show.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
Also, the Breakout podcast with me, Nick, our editor-in-chief, and Marty from Escapist. The most recent episode, which is technically episode 3, but it's the 4th episode we've released. That just came out yesterday as well. So tune into all of that stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Want to thank all my guests for joining me and having these discussions today, as well as everyone in the chat who watched. Really appreciate it. Love the support. See you guys this afternoon for Super Smash Sunday at the Open Party channel at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Peace. Bye. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.